Hi, this is Bob Woodfin with Bob Woodfin Photography and with the Rowlett, Texas Photography Club. Excuse me. And today I want to talk to you about changing colors of things in Photoshop. Now remember, this is a basic Photoshop workshop, so we're going to talk about some very basic functions. There are two ways I'm going to show you about how to change colors. The first one is a little bit easier, although it has some drawbacks. The second one, you actually have to make a selection, which is the hardest part of the entire tool. But let's start with this. Excuse me again. We're going to start with the hue and saturation adjustment layer. So if you go to hue and saturation adjustment layer here and bring it up, this is what it looks like. And let's talk about the panel here first. As in previous videos, I talked about the top part here is very common to a lot of the adjustment layers. First you have the actual adjustment panel, and then you have the properties. We're not going to talk about properties today. We'll talk about those down the road at some point. You also have presets though, and again these come with the Photoshop as it is presented, and you can create your own. So if you have certain settings that you want to use here, all you have to do is make the settings and then click custom, and then later on, if you want to use those exact same settings, then you have your preset you can use. I don't find these very helpful, but you may. That doesn't mean that it's not something that's useful. Maybe it's just some usefulness I have not found yet. So if you find something that you like there, or something that you want to let us know, please do so in your comments and let us know that there is a good reason for using default, or excuse me, using presets. Next you have your master options here, and you can select here, and here are the different reds, or excuse me, the different color channels. Notice that you have the RGB colors, red, greens, blues, but you also have the CMYKs, cyan, magenta, and yellows. So you have the regular RGB channels, and then you have their opposites. So you have everything here that you can use for changing colors. The only exception is you don't have blacks and whites, which means that in order to change colors from black and white, you're going to have to go about it a different way. But if you have any other colors in the spectrum, you can change those here. This is a pointed selection tool, and basically what it does, it allows you to come out here. If you click on it, you come out here and make a selection, and what that does is it says this is the color I want to change, and we'll talk about how to use that in just a moment. This is the hue slider, and basically all you do is move the slider back and forth, and it changes the colors in the image by the color that the slider is under, and possibly the opposites. So it also uses the colors that are there in order to make the change. This is the saturation slider. If you want to desaturate your image, you just pull it down here like this, turn it to black and white, or you can really blow out the colors pushing it to the right. Underneath that is the lightness and darkness slider, and if you move this down here, it darkens your image and it lightens your image. You go the other way, so it's exactly what it sounds like. Down below that you have your selection tools. These are your eyedroppers. This is, if you use this eyedropper, you can select the color you want. This, with the plus beside it, if you select that, you can add colors to that selection. And this one with the minus, you can subtract colors from that selection. So once you make your selection and begin to get zeroed in on what you want to change, you can use these color eyedroppers in order to refine that. Next to that is the colorize checkbox. If you select that, it's going to basically take away your ability to go to a particular color channel up here, and you just have this slider to move to your different colors. So colorize is useful, but it's not always used. So we'll talk about it later as well. Underneath that we have the two little bars down here, and we'll talk about those in just a minute, but basically the top bar tells you the color and color range that you have selected to change, and the bottom bar tells you the color range you're changing to. So that'll make more sense in just a moment. And down below are the same icons that we've had on other adjustment layers. You either trashed it completely, or you make the layer inactive. You can reset, you can do before and after, and you can use this as a clipping mask if you want to clip this to the layer below. So with that, well, let's get started. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to change this red here to a different color. And the easy way to do that is to just click on this and then just come here and click here. And once you do that, you're going to see that you have some little brackets here. And basically what it's saying is that the color you selected is in between these two middle brackets, and then you have a smoothing from here, or gradation from here to here. So you have those colors that will be affected too if you make a change. So if you want to refine that, all you have to do is take these sliders and like move it in a little bit, maybe move this one in a little bit, so that it's not smoothing quite as much. It doesn't take those neighboring colors into consideration as much. So with that selected, now you see you have your eyedropper tools here. If I want to make additional selections, maybe there are some nearby colors that I also want to affect, I can come here with this and click maybe a darker red or something like that. Right now I'm only wanting to change the red. So if I say, well, we've got some green selected in there too, or maybe some purple, I can take this and I can say I don't want this purple in here, so I can remove that, and it helps to refine the colors that you want. Notice that when I selected this red, it moved me to the reds channel. So now I'm in the reds channel, and whatever I affect is going to affect, or whatever I change is going to affect only the reds channel. So if I take this slider and as I move it, notice the color change, and notice how it's not changing the green here, it's not changing the blue here, it's not changing this green, this blue, it's only changing the red area. Now notice it's kind of splotchy up here. So if this is the color you would want, you would need to come in here and make some adjustments to these sliders. And you can see that now we have red on the top, but we have kind of an orange on the bottom. So it's giving you the color down here that you're changing to and the color that you changed from. So as I move this further, let's move it a little further over here, and we begin to get to green. And now we have green down here, and we have the red up here. So we're moving away, and it's changing. You've got some colors here, some things here that are kind of blotchy, so you would need to work with this and try to smooth that out. If you really didn't want this in there, then you would need to come in here and maybe zero these in a little bit more and move this in just a little bit more, and it kind of refines. Now you can see it actually is worse, but it kind of has refined it. I can move these over a little bit to only be red. So if I did this and moved it over here to get away from the yellows, you can see that it's done a little bit better job over here, but still some areas that would need to be worked on. But it is showing a bit of a separation of this tree to the background. So you just kind of move around here and find the color that you're looking for, and sometimes you're going to have, it's just not going to work, but sometimes it's going to work just great. So let's say we wanted to have it this color of blue, you've got this up here that's a problem. You would need to work it out. If you can't get it to go here, then at least you've got it separated from the trees. Now notice that the tree has a little bit of red in it. So that's one of the problems with using this method, is that, oops, didn't mean to do that. Let me pull that back out here. That's one of the problems with this method, is actually getting it away from this tree and surrounding colors. So that in effect you would need to come in and continue to play with this and try to get it down to the exact colors that you're looking for. And you may even bring this in a little bit more, this in a little bit more, and try to get it off of this tree. When you get where it is separated from this tree, then you're in good shape, because that's where the real problem is. You can always clone this in to make it the same, the right color that you want. So this is one of the methods, and that's basically all you do, is you can continue with this. Now see, it's kind of a purple color, and purple is very close to red, so you don't see any highlight on this tree. Everything works really well. And you could also kind of desaturate it a little bit, so you might have a little bit of a desaturated red color. And you could also darken it or lighten it to get exactly the hue that you're looking for. Let's talk about colorize. If I click on colorize, it's going to colorize your entire image. That's one of the problems with using colorize. You're not really able to take one color in the image and make your change. It's going to colorize the entire image. So what you would do is come in here and you're just colorizing the image. So if you want to put like a blue tint on it to give it kind of a moody look, then you can do it with colorize. Otherwise, colorize is not what you're going to be looking for. Okay, so the idea here is, once again, that you take this and come over and make a selection, and now it's got that selection. Now you can come in here and move around to make those changes, and you can refine your selection with these bars. So I'm going to add all around here so that I'm getting these colors that I want. And it is making a change. You may not be able to see it, but it is making a change to better identify it. Then you can come in here, and if it's bringing out some colors that you want to leave out, such as an edge here, you might be able to zoom in here and look at the edge on these leaves and see it, but it's actually looking pretty good at this point. But you might be able to subtract them out using this eyedropper. Okay? So that's one way to change the color. And we're going to take another image here and do the same thing. This is a young lady that I shot at Texas School. And Katie Edwards, she was a sweetheart of a model. And this morning was probably in the 50s. And you can see that she's wearing kind of a skimpy top, so she was a trooper to take the jacket off and get this kind of a shot for us. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do the same method to try to change the color of her outfit here. And what we're going to find is, when we try to change this color, we have lots of reds around her. And how do we adapt for those reds? You're going to find out that she has a little bit of hair here that the red is going to come through. That's going to be a problem that we would have to deal with. But right now, let's just consider that it's going to be perfect and see what kind of obstacles we have. So we're going to take this, and I'm going to start clicking around here. I'm going to click on the plus and just start clicking around here for different shades of red. We also are going to get some of her skin, because there is some red in her skin tone. So we're going to come here and we're going to try to click on her lips, a little bit on her skin around here. And now we've kind of got an area that we're looking to change. So what we're going to do now is come in here and take this and just start pushing it. And look, now we're turning that a little bit of purple. Okay, and we're not affecting her skin, so we did pretty good there. We'll push it a little bit more. Now you're noticing that you got a little bit, depending on what kind of shades you want there. Now we're going into the blue area. Push it to blue. So whenever you get to here, notice we've got some on her lips there, a little bit of blue on her lips. You have a little bit of an area where you have a problem. And it's not changing everything. So what you would then do is come in here again, and actually it's hitting all the areas. It's just not hitting that light color. So what you would need to do is come in and try to just dial this in a little bit better and see if you could get that a little bit better on her. Yeah, it's not quite working. But there we go with orange. Now the thing is this is darker, and it was not one that we added, so what we can come in here and make sure that we do is add those. It's getting her lips again. But there we go with green. We've got a nice green color there for her top. And then we could actually take the saturation down a little bit, maybe make it a little bit lighter color. Something like this. And then we have a pretty good green. Now notice if you come in here real close, we're going to zoom in here a little bit. You got a little bit of on her, a little bit in her navel there, a little bit on her hands, got a little bit of an edge around here. So this doesn't do a fantastic job, but with a little bit of work, you could come in here and clean up these areas. So what would we do to clean up these areas? Well, basically this is a mask. So you would come in here with the mask and just take your brush and mask it out. So 100%. Here we go, taking it out of there. And then you would come in and very, very delicately take it off of her hand. Whoops. I've got kind of a soft brush here and it's bleeding over, so what I'll do is change, make it not so soft, maybe about 50%, and try to bring that back. But it would be it's a little bit delicate having to come in here and get that, and a little bit of time consuming. So take it out here, a little bit on the edge there. But you get the idea. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, and I'm not going to do a great job here because of the time. But you just come in and mask it off and be surprised how quickly or how effectively you can make it look like a different color. Now these edges are going to take some work too, so I won't work too much on those. But you also have background area like these brick. So, because the brick are kind of a red color that you would want to remove. So, I mean, that is part of the original. So, we're going to, the color that you're removing. So, we're going to take this and just very broadly come in and get rid of that. And that's all there is to it. And a little bit on the ground because the ground is kind of red and you don't care about getting on her because that's black. You're not replacing the black, you're just worried about the green here. Whoops, got some of it there. And so this is one way you would come in and change colors of something. And I've done this many times because you don't always get your clients to come in with the right colors. So you either change the colors to fit the background or you change the background to fit the colors. So there she is now with green. And if you've already done everything here, you can come in here. It's actually at master again because I made a change to it. So you would need to come in here and go back to your reds. Oops, reds. And this is where everything is. So then you could come in here and very easily make some changes there. And notice if you get into a color that's really contrast to red, the red really shows up instead of blending in. So if you really need to change it to like a blue here, you would have a lot more work than you would if you wanted to change it to some form of red or green. So that like this color, very easy. You can't see any red on this hardly at all. You know, it doesn't quite fit, but if you wanted to change to one of these colors, very easy. You get down here to blue and you begin to see the bleeding on the hair here and some on the edges. So it depends on what color and how you're wanting to change it and what you need to do. And if this is going to be a small picture, then you don't have to worry too much. If it's going to be a 20 by 30, then you would need to worry a little bit more. So this is one way to change the color. Let's go to another picture. Let's do this one, and let's try to change the color of this dress. So let's say we want it to be maybe a blue or something like that. So we're going to come in here and we're going to go to hue and saturation, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take this, we're going to come in here and do a color selection here, and we may even do several to try to get it to what we want. And it's also going to be this white color up here and back here. So we want to make sure that we make those changes as well when we make a color change. So notice it went to the yellows channel. This is not really totally white, but it's actually an off yellow. So we can take this, and what does it do? It changes everything but the dress. Not really what you wanted. So what does that mean? Remember when I told you that in these color channels you don't have black and white. All you have are the different RGBs and then their opposites, which is the CMYK. So, or the CMY, there's no K in here, but so you can't really use this to change white or black. So what do? Well, the other option you can do is you have to make a selection, and there are about 50 different ways to make a selection. We're going to do one that's fairly easy, and then we have to go in and make our own little adjustments to it. So one of the things that I think I suggested that you take off of your tools panel was the quick selection tool. And what I'm going to suggest is that if you don't have it on your panel, that you can at least go into the tools and find it. It's the quick selection tool. So how does the quick selection tool work? The quick selection tool is like a brush, and with the brush what you're doing is you're clicking and dragging, and what it does is it looks at what you're dragging over and looks at your image and says, oh, this is what they want to select, so I'm going to select that, everything that looks like that. Now, you also have some tools up here, and the auto enhance is something I like to check. What the auto enhance does is it gives it a little bit, makes it a little bit smarter in what it's trying to select. And what you do is you basically click, and see I clicked right there and it selected all of this. But if I click and drag, it begins to say, oh, you want all of that. So it basically makes that selection for you. Now the other way to do this is if I do Command D to remove that, is you can do select subject, which is what I like to do before I use any selection tool. The problem with this is it selects the entire subject. I don't really want the entire subject, I just want the dress. So again, with the quick selection tool, we're going to come in here and just click and drag, and it's going to give me something like this. So it's selected the entire dress, with the exception of these straps up here, and it has also selected an area down here that doesn't need to be selected. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do the rotate tool, and I'm going to rotate over, and this is just because the rotate tool helps me in making better selections, or drawing better. So then I'm going to go to the lasso tool, and the lasso tool lets me do freehand selections. If I leave it like this, it's going to replace the selection. If I press the Option key, it removes from the selection. So that's what I'm doing right here, is I'm saying I want this removed, and by doing that I press the Option key or the Alt key, it does that. Now if you look real close, I actually didn't get all of it, so if you press the Shift key, now it's going to add. So this is actually what needs to be added right there. Okay, so then whoops, sorry, wrong key. press the space bar, and I can move it around here. Now we have, it did a pretty good selection here, except it got part of her arm. So I'm going to do, again, Option to remove it. And I'm going to do this, remove that. And here we want to add this, so I'm going to press the Shift. And it's going to put that in there. And you just kind of do this all the way around to make your selection. And now notice that it didn't get this strap. So we're going to come in here. I do better from upper right to lower left when I'm drawing. So that was the rotate tool. I just hit R for the rotate tool and it let me rotate around. Now I'm going to hit L for the lasso tool and press Shift. And I'm going to come in here and draw in manually. And you have to have a pretty steady hand here. And I just do a little at a time, and then I kind of make a little bit of a correction here if I missed something. And this is the hardest part of the whole thing, is doing this. And if you wanted to, you could actually do the select and mask up here and try to do it using the select and mask. When I did that earlier, it did not do a very good job. So that's one reason why I'm not using it. And we'll talk about selections down the road. And select and mask will be involved in that. Select and mask is a very, very good tool. And if you're going to do any kind of extractions, like I do with my athletic posters and banners, it works wonders. Actually, I have somebody else do that for me now, but for little objects that I want to use, if I want to cut out something to add to a poster or something like that, such as a water bottle or something, I can use the select and mask or something like that, and it works great. Okay, this won't take much longer. I'm just going to come in here, and this won't be a great selection because typically you would need to take a little bit more time. This is going to have some edges on it, which is going to show up when we do our color change, but you'll get the idea. And this black is going to be okay because I'm not going to be changing the black, although I may as well go ahead and take it out. And then one more thing around here on her shoulder. We'll take this and we'll add this, and really, really, really rough there. Okay, getting a little faster here. So this takes a little less time. Okay. So a little bit more off of there. Okay, this isn't going to be great, but it's not too bad. So once you have a selection made, and we're going to call this a selection. Now there's a couple of little tricks with selections that I want to point out. And that is that if you're afraid that, if you hit all of a sudden hit select, Alt D or Command D, you're going to deselect, and you've spent all this time doing it. So one of the things that I do is I come in here to select, save selection, and then I just say dress or something like that. And then if I accidentally mess it up or whatever, I can just go back in and reload that dress, and it gives me the entire selection. But since this didn't work with hue and saturation, I'm just going to remove this, throw it away, and we're going to do a solid color adjustment. And with solid color adjustment, you can see it actually made a change right here for me, and it will for whatever color I select here. So you can see I kind of missed on a selection here, which I need to go back and fix. But let's say we wanted red. That's close enough. Now you come in here, and I would select soft light or overlay or one of these contrast modes. Maybe soft light. You could also select multiply, and then come in here with multiply and bring the opacity down a little bit so that it's a different color or a little bit lighter. But that is the way to change a white color. And it's the same for black. Now you can see I missed these full flowers here because I just didn't see those. So we're going to come back over here to our selection, And what I'm going to do is come in here, I'm going to rotate, and I'm going to paint those with white because that's what the selection is. The selection is actually white, so I'm just going to go in here with white at 100% and just paint that in, and it's going to give me those little flowers that I missed. Let's see. So need a little bit of a harder brush in order to get it right, but this is pretty close. Okay, so then you can see that we've changed the color of this white dress. I still miss this little bitty one down here. Things like that bug me, so I have to go in and make the selection, make the correction in it. Up here on the strap, which I knew wasn't going to be a great selection, you would need to go in and straighten that out too. Same way, just paint it with white. And that's pretty much it. That's the other way to change the color of anything. And then all you have to do is double click this if you wanted a different color, select blue, and again you realize that you have hue, saturation, and brightness, and basically if you want a different saturation of it, you just come in and select saturation, change the saturation to something a little bit less, and then you could select brightness and change the brightness to make it darker or lighter, whatever. So, and when you get the color you're looking for, if you have a particular color that you know, if you're trying to match a particular color, you can put that color down here and it would match it perfectly. But by using a blend mode, you're letting it blend in instead of just being a flat color on top of it. So once again, change the hue here. You can just change the color. If you want it to be more of a, you know, a purple type color, blue, maybe a blue-green or something like that. You just go up and down the spectrum here, and again change the saturation, maybe more saturated, maybe a little bit lighter. So if you have a background and they came with a off color that's not going to match your background, you can go in and do something like this and adjust the color of it so it matches the background, so you have good color harmony in your portrait. So that's the second way, is using a selection and then solid color adjustment layer, and it makes it fairly simple. So we're going to do one more here, and this lady has a black top, so we just changed a white top, we can do the black top and do it the same way. So what we're going to do is come in here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and we're going to use the quick selection tool again, and we're going to come in with a little bit smaller, and we're just going to come in here and start, whoops, it kind of jumped over, so I press Alt or Option and say take that away, paint over again, take it away, take it away, take this away, and you may have to do a little bit of work on the edge here because you've got a black background there, but if you do something like this, you get used to how this works. It's not really that hard, and it gets you 90% there. So I don't have, you need to make it really small here, and we can press Shift, come in here and just kind of walk up this strap like this, and same thing here, and so we kind of got it right there. Now it's a little off on the blue jeans down here, so press the Alt key or Option key and just kind of take it off down here, and you may decide that it's not worth it. It's not going to be, nobody's going to see the difference where these two come together. So it's kind of like that, and now you have a selection that's not bad. So once again, I would save the selection, select, save, and I would call it top or blouse or whatever, and then I would come in here with a solid color adjustment layer, and we would come into hue, and I could change it to blue, change it to blue, there we go. Sometimes I have to click a couple of times, but change it to blue or whatever color, and notice if I don't change the blending mode, it just looks like a blotch over it. So I need to come over here, change the blending mode, we'll make it multiply again, And with this we can bring it down to maybe 70% or something. Select this again, and we can say brighter and make it really bright. And you can see it's dark, but it is, I may want to use screen instead of multiply over here. So if I use screen, push it up, and then come in here and use hue for a different color, maybe that blue, and make it a little bit less saturated, and then make the brightness not so bright. Something like that. I'm not sure screen is the right one either. See, multiply doesn't really do it, so maybe it's soft light at 100%. I like screen, maybe bring it down to something more like that. And that kind of matches the color a little bit better. And then you can make it brighter or darker here. Change the hue again, maybe something a little more like that. And then you've got her. You can see up here at the top you would need a little bit of work around the hair right there. And a little bit right around there I can see an edge. But it did pretty good actually. So if you back off, you can see you may want to make it green to kind of fit in with the greenery around it instead of blue. You bring it down here to something like this. Maybe make it a darker green, like this. And then saturation, maybe a little bit more saturated. So then she has a green top. So you could play with those colors, but you get the idea. This is a way that you can change the color, and change it pretty quickly too. So that's about it. You have the hue and saturation method, which works really well, especially if you have a color that is separated from surrounding colors that are close. But this is basically the best way. The problem is that you have to make a selection, and then your selection has to be pretty good, and usually around the edges you have a little bit of work to do. So anyway, that's it on changing colors, and I hope you enjoyed this, and we will see you next time. Thank you.